everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round one prize picks targets for this week's AT&T Byron Nelson. In this quick video, we'll be doing some quick research to get you prepared for this week's slate, and of course we'll be going over my top 5 props here for Thursday's round. The goal here, of course, is to help you make your own cards. If you decide to tail what I'm looking at, so be it, right? It's been really profitable over the last few months, and last week was the real one down week I've had the last 2 months, frankly. The last 7 or 8 events have been very kind to us, some 12.5x's, a lot of 5 and 7.5x parlays. But last week, outside of Sunday, not many hits. On Sunday, of course, we went 3 for 3, ended up having 2 pushes, so could have really been an epic day there on Sunday, but nonetheless, kind of saved us from an ROI perspective and put us at just slightly in the negative. That's the first negative week I've had for 4 or 5 weeks, like I said, and we're looking to rebound. And I'm expecting this, because it's a relatively new golf course, to also be a week to try and take advantage of. We have data from last year. We have a lot of people I know on the ground, so we're going to be people that we can get some reports from. So in general, just really excited for the tournament. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop right on into it. Alrighty, we'll start off with some research, and the one thing of note here is going to be the driving accuracy percentage and the GIR percentage. This is an easy golf course, a scoring average of 2.43 shots under par, which was one of the easiest we had on the entire schedule, but even more glaringly important, super high driving accuracy and super high green regulation. The 71.8% driving accuracy means that the average player is going to hit right around 10.2 fairways per round. And we are going to have slightly drier conditions this year. It will be firmer and faster than what we had in the 2021 version. But because we have 40.3 yard wide fairways on average, you're still going to hit an absolute ton. So if I had to project it, I project it closer to like 68.5%, which is still right around 10 fairways per round. The green regulation percentage of 73% is also going to be high. They're large greens, 6,800 square foot per green on average, and also greens that are relatively receptive. Even without a ton of rain, this is an easier TPC style golf course, TPC Craig Ranch, as opposed to some of those Players Championship type of courses over there at Sawgrass or even PGA West that can be a little bit more penal with more water hazards, a lot more undulation on the greens. That is not what we get. This is truly the easiest TPC golf course that we get, kind of comparable to a TPC Deer Run, where we do see a winning score between 15 to 25 under par. In terms of weather, it's a little bit early to be looking at it. This is happening right around midday on a Tuesday, but you have a very typical forecast, I'd say, for Thursday. Lower winds in the morning, 7 to 10 miles an hour of sustained winds, 13 to 18 miles an hour of wind gusts, and then in the afternoon, you see the more robust sustained winds, 14 to 15 miles an hour of sustained winds with those teens in terms of the wind gusts. So what you'd expect for Texas, it's a relatively windy part of the country, and because it's so flat, you're going to get some of those gusty winds as well. So in terms of weather, exactly what we saw last year. So not really anything that's throwing off my modeling. Maybe a slight advantage to the guys that are playing in the morning wave, but I don't expect it to be like a 5 to 10% difference like what we saw during this absolute slosh fest at the Wells Fargo. All right, and now time to get into the board, and you'll see that I'm taking 3 overs and 2 unders, which is the usual here. Try and take advantage of a 12.5x parlay, but more importantly, take advantage of the averages we know with the green and regulation percentage, also with one of our fairway props. So let's start with the GIR, with the guys that I will be supporting, and first off, let's go ahead and identify Adam Scott, who's there at 12.5 greens. The 73% GIR percentage I talked about before means that players are going to hit over 13 greens on average, and that's not even considering a player's skill set. When guys like an Adam Scott, who's one of the better iron players we've ever seen on the PGA Tour, just name a more beautiful swing, I'll wait. Rory McIlroy is one of the only players that comes close to an Adam Scott. I'd project him closer to 13.8, even 14 greens at this type of golf course, depending on the weather. So I absolutely love him there at his price tag. And for him to get to 13, just has to have an average day for the field. And again, he's a well above average player. And also for him to hit the under, he'd have to miss 6 greens in regulation, which would be a solid 7 to 8% less than the field average. And in terms of his average, it's a solid 5 to 6% more accurate than the field on average per round, which puts it at almost a 15% cushion that we have there. So absolutely love Adam Scott at 12.5 JR. definitely my favorite prop on the board. Next up, we have Bubba Watson, who's a very similar iron player, right? One of the more well-known players on tour. And you'd expect players like Adam Scott and Bubba Watson to maybe get a boost because of their name recognition. A lot of prop companies, a lot of, Draftkings, Sportsbook, FanDuel, that kind of thing, will price up guys like an Adam Scott and Bubba Watson because of their name recognition. It seems like the opposite is being done here. These guys are kind of being pushed further down the board. Maybe that's to entice us to take the over, but again, he's a well above average iron player, and the average iron player hit over 13 greens last year, right? So as a player that I expect to have plenty of leeway there, and while it's not quite as drastic as what we have with an Adam Scott, I still have him projected for hitting well over 13.6 greens in regulation. So also one of my favorite props on the board. For our last pro, the guy that we will be supporting here is going to be a fairway prop. It's going to be Taylor Gooch at 8.5 fairways. He's one of the more accurate drivers of the golf ball, and even though of late he has been spraying it a bit, I am expecting him to return to his identity, particularly at a golf course with 40-yard wide fairways. We talked about that before. It is hard to miss these things, particularly if you're playing strategic. And this is a golf tournament that Taylor Gooch could certainly win, and if he does so, would be taking a ton of momentum into the PGA Championship. So at 8.5 fairways, the average player this week is going to hit 10 fairways, or at least based on last year's stats. That's a solid 1.5 difference right there, let alone that Gooch is more accurate than the PGA Tour average. So I have him projected for 10.6 fairways, which is a solid 2.1 higher than his projection. Now, the one thing I'll say about fairways is they are a little bit more volatile than other stats. So that's why it is my third favorite, even though percentage-wise, it does have the biggest edge. It's just obviously if he misses 2 more fairways than we expect, could hit the under. And in terms of fairways, a little bit less volatile. It's the more consistent shots gained category from round to round. That's why it's so predictive, and we use it so much when it comes to DFS analysis. Of course, with this prop analysis, off the tee play can be a little bit more volatile. So that's why it's not my favorite prop on the board, but certainly somebody I'll still be supporting. And now we have our 2 fades. It's 2 guys at 13 greens. So obviously the push is well within the cards, given that the average player will hit 13 greens in regulation at this golf course. But the one common denominator between Kevin Kisner, who we're taking the under on, and a Matt Kuchar, who we're also taking the under on, is going to be their distance off the tee. This is not a short golf course. It's a par 72, right around 7,450 yards, actually a little bit longer than that. And it has a little bit of gnarly rough. 2.5-inch Bermuda grass. While it's not the 3.5-inch that we saw at the Wells Fargo Championship, it's still enough to make these players think, particularly some of the shorter hitters on tour. And Matt Kuchar was horrible over the weekend at the Wells Fargo. Now, it was windy, it was rainy, it was super cold, going to be completely different conditions this time around. He also had to play through that. He had to endure that for the entire weekend. I would imagine he's a little bit beat up by the golf course. His swing is probably a little bit different than it was before, because these players were having to hit chip shots around that place. And pretty much anybody who played last week, I have a lot of concerns about, because they were having to hit 3/4 shots the entire week, and it would not surprise me if a lot of them look really rusty this time around. So do not like him at 13 greens. I think at the best he's going to push here, if not hit something closer to 12 or 11 GIR. He's an extremely short player. If he's missing these fairways, I'm not going to be in a solid position to hit some of the longer par 4s. And there's also 3 par 3s over 210 yards. Those are more than capable of being misses. We'll also talk about Kevin Kisner, who, outside of some of the shorter events, more of the precision golf courses that we saw down in South Florida for the Players Championship up there in Ponte Vedra Beach, he's good at those shorter golf courses, but when there's length there, he really starts to struggle, right? The long irons are not the best part of Kisner's game. Much better wedge player than he is with a 3 or a 4 iron, and as a result, could miss some of those long par 3s, similar to a Matt Kuchar. Or on these long par 4s, I expect him to struggle. So again, I think at the very best, he's going to push here, if not hit something closer to the 12 or 11 mark. As per usual with the 5 picks, this is just a small portion of my card. Most of my entries, most of my bankroll this week is going to be 3 or 4 leg flexes and powers with these lineups. And if I had to rank them, it would be in this order. Again, Adam Scott and Bubba Watson, my favorite props. I like trying to mix in at least one of these fades into almost every card that I'm doing, but I'll round robin a good majority of them. So if I was playing a $100 bankroll, I might have like $7 to $8 on something like this card. It would be a lot more money on those 2 3 leg cards that are a little bit more consistent, and is really where you start to pad your bankroll. The 5 leg 12.5x, guys, is nice, but if you're using that as, every single bet that you're placing, you're only placing 5 leg parlays every single week, you're not going to have at least the same profit as somebody that's doing the more well-rounded approach, right? You might hit every once in a while, you're going to have some really solid weeks, but if you want consistent ROI, if you're looking to actually grind out profit from Prize Picks, you certainly want to be a little bit more diversified with your portfolio. All right, that's all I've got for the round 1 picks. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and let me know down in the comments what your favorite prop on the board is. Also, go ahead and let me know what type of cards are your favorite, whether it's a 2-leg power, 3-leg power, 4 or 5-leg flex. Let me know what your favorite format is. For me, it's going to have to be the 5-leg flex. It is my favorite. Not the highest dollar one for me. If I'm talking about ROI, I love myself some 2-leg powers. But go ahead and let me know that down below as well. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That way you don't miss any of my previews to come. We'll have you covered for rounds 2, 3, and 4. So look forward to those videos after the round ends. And of course, for all of my DFS content, course breakdown content, all of the golf tournaments to come. Really appreciate you guys stopping by, supporting the channel, all that sort of fun stuff. Hopefully we can hit big here for round 1 and maybe take home that 12.5x card. So I appreciate you guys. Best of luck with all of your lineups, all of your prop cards here for round 1, and let's get this cash.